This is episode 718 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing, president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. I am very pleased to be joined by Albuquerque mayoral candidate Mayling Armijo. We're going to be talking about her run for mayor of Albuquerque this fall. Welcome to Tipping Point, New Mexico, Mayling.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I am glad to have you on. We got together over coffee a few weeks ago and really enjoyed our conversation and trying to have as many of the mayoral candidates on as I realistically can. I realize that is an Albuquerque-centric thing, but as the major city of New Mexico goes, it's a very important thing to the rest of the people in this state. So hopefully they'll indulge us and enjoy the conversation because a lot of important issues being discussed and on the ballot this fall in Albuquerque. So with that, I want to start off with the basic question of who are you, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background that led you to run for mayor of Albuquerque.
So I'm one of six kids. My father is a career military, and from Albuquerque, born in Albuquerque. My dad lives here with my mom in the UNM area, so most of my siblings and nieces and nephews live here. Went to UNM, started my career in banking and finance, and then moved over to public finance, and then ultimately economic development, where I was there between the county and the state for 15 years, a little over 15 years. And then was at Sandoval County as the deputy county manager for a short period. And then now in my current job as the executive director of Elevated Lending, where we help small businesses access capital. And so enjoy that, kind of getting back into the finance and the banking part of my career has been enjoyable. But what happened was, my family, we typically are together on Sundays, and we're having a Sunday dinner, and this is probably fall of last year. And we're talking about who's, is Keller going to run for a third term? Who would run? We knew some people would step up. And my sisters and I who are all three female, three alphas in the room, just trying to talk over each other. One sister suggested, "Why don't you do it?" And I just kind of processed the thought for a second, and I said, "Well, it was funny because I had been thinking about it and was talking about it with close friends, and it just." I don't know. It just kind of clicked, and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I could do it." I knew I have the skill set, the experience, the leadership that the job requires. And I said, yeah, let's really explore that idea. And then over the next few months we did, um, and, just continued to meet and talk about it as a family. And, to the point where I was like, okay, we're going to do this. Everybody's in. And everybody has to be in when you make this type of career choice, because, it really has taken a lot out of me just through this petition period, but also from my family, because they're the crux of my volunteers, and my support. So we're here today, and I'm here with you, Paul.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and politics is a very taxing, pardon the pun, but taxing
Yeah.
enterprise, and we'll talk a little bit about taxes in a few minutes. But uh, obviously, uh, you and perhaps your family members may have had some concerns and quibbles with the way Mayor Keller has managed the city of Albuquerque. Would you care to elaborate on some of those concerns and questions? Because it is a crowded field. You're not the only person who
Hmm.
clearly thinks they can do a better job than the current mayor of Albuquerque, and I happen to be among the folks that think that virtually anybody could do a better job than the mayor of Albuquerque. But
Yeah.
talk about what sticks out sticks in your craw as issues that you really are concerned with? Obviously, you come
Yeah.
from an economic development
Right.
perspective, but
Yeah, absolutely. And that's my big thing. Like small businesses. Let's just talk about small businesses. We um I can't tell you how many small businesses that we've done loans for who complain to me about having to wait for a permit or an inspection from the city. And it inhibits their ability to open their doors when they have to make a loan payment um or pay vendors, but they're unable to open their doors because they're waiting on the city to do an inspection to give them a certificate of occupancy. That frustrates me. And then they fee small businesses to death. I mean, they're already paying property taxes, and if they're leasing, they're paying a triple net lease, which includes the property taxes, so they're still paying the taxes. And then you're taxing them on as far as the GRT, and I get you pass that down to the customer, but then that affects their price and their ability to move product. So there's like all of these things that just in the small business economic development world that frustrates me. And then I'll tie in another issue with small business is the homelessness. Um, the homeless though has to be addressed separately are camping on their properties or vandalizing their properties or just petty theft. And the businesses that I've talked to are so frustrated because when they reach out to the city or to anybody, it takes them so long to either respond or they don't respond at all. And so there isn't a small business I've walked into that has said, "Oh yeah, no, we're good. We're being well taken care of." And then and one of the big things for my family was there isn't a family member that lives in Albuquerque who has not been affected by crime, whose car hasn't been broken into, whose property hasn't been stolen. Not one of my family members has been unaffected. And so these are the things that really get into my craw, as you just as you said earlier. And and we're frustrated. And I know that I am expressing what a lot of Albuquerque feels. Because as we're pounding the pavement, getting these petition signatures, they're asking these questions. Like, what are you going to do about the public camping? What are we going to do about crime? What, like I'm considering shutting down my business because I have a homeless guy who keeps camping out in front of it. So these are these things that affect our community that if we don't address quickly and make a difference, then we're going to continue to deteriorate. And this is the frustration.
yeah, well, I think that is something that's shared by quite a number of people, and certainly the crime issue, the homelessness issue. Those are two big things. Now, that is obviously a challenge to kind of separate yourself and differentiate yourself from a field of people who, with the exception of the mayor and maybe Alexander Ubaez, who's kind of on the progressive side as well. A lot of the other folks running in this race are going to be focusing on homelessness and crime. But one of the things, and I think we share, is the economic focus. We did a candidate survey in which we asked you and we're asking others questions. You were kind enough to be the first mayoral candidate to share your thoughts on some of these issues. And I'm not going to go through everyone, but you can find it at heirsoфenchantment.com, riograndefoundation.org. It's posted there. Uh, Talk about some of, as you see it, economically speaking. Let's for the moment, crime and homelessness, they are obviously economic issues, but let's focus more on what you would call traditional economic policies. You mentioned permitting.
Hmm.
Is it just a matter of telling government bureaucrats to move? Like, how do you solve that problem? Do we reduce the number of permits that we require of people? What's your take on permitting and as a general issue?
Well, I think the issue with the permitting and the inspections is the insurance. So you have to typically if something does happen, your insurance company is being like, well, did you get a permanent inspection? Right. So it's kind of a coverage, kind of a CYA
Mhm.
kind of thing that they put on there. And so so you're not your hands are almost tied. Now, as a homeowner, you can choose to take that risk, but as a small business, it's maybe not a risk you can mitigate later. And so the challenge is why why is it taking so long? So you could get the permit easily because you can just do it online, but why does it take so long to get an inspection? Why is it taking so long to get a certificate of occupancy? Is it a staffing issue? These aren't issues that just popped up just these last few months. This has been going on for a few years, if not longer. So, is it people knowing how to do their job? All of these different things. Can we make this system more efficient? Do we need, what is the disconnect? And that I don't know. And without getting in there and taking a deep dive and figuring out what we need to do to get it fixed. But it's an issue. It's a big issue. And the fact that the mayor or anybody is not talking about it surprises me.
Yeah. So other economic issues, we've had a rapid increase in the city's budget,
Yes.
uh, nearly doubling. It would seem that, you might have enough employees to process some of these permits and do the various things that, government should be doing. But um, do you think the budget's too big, too small, about right? Just needs to be worked around a little bit in terms of where the money goes. What's your take on the overall size of the city's budget?
It's too big. It's too big. And it's grown under this administration exponentially. And I don't know why. And I looked at the budget recently and was actually having a really good conversation with this economist over the weekend about the budget. And she's one of those really intelligent people who like to read those types of things for fun.
Hmm.
And so it was a great conversation. But one of the things we were noticing is that like APD they moved 3 million from I think the library to APD. There's no explanation in the budget why, what's going on, what measurable outcomes are tied to that money. There's nothing there. There's just this is where the money's going and this is the department that gets it. And one of the things that I've always done in my life, even in government, is tied measurable outcomes to money. And that's going to be an expectation when I become mayor is that every department director will have measurable outcomes to their budget. And you don't see that now. You don't see any type of where's the accountability? How are people managing to the budget? And what results are we getting from that?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you know Keller did when he first got elected, relating to the budget, was increasing taxes. And based on your statement that the budget is too big, uh, it sounds like you might be inclined to at least not raise taxes or even reduce taxes. What's kind of the and taxes? They're only a big deal until they get talked about. But there was a proposal just a month ago to increase the
Yeah.
gross receipts tax in the city of Albuquerque. I
Right.
take it you're not a supporter of that.
I am not. No.
And then you said, furthermore, in your survey results, our survey, that you would be willing to change the charter of the city to give the citizens a ability to vote on a referendum over that. And that's something that Colorado's got in their state constitution. It's something that
Hmm.
occasionally, in fact, that tax increase that was proposed would have gone to the people, so they would have put that in there. But when the mayor increased taxes, when city council increased taxes, whatever, every 8 years ago,
Hmm.
that did not require a vote of the people. Why is that important to you?
I I can't tell you how annoyed when taxes get increased. So I can't. I don't know that there was anybody out there that wouldn't be annoyed by a tax increase, whether it's your property or GRT. And it should always go to the voters. It should never be left to an elected to have that type of impact on your life. Like, you should be able to have a say in that. And so no, if I'm the one that's holding the pen and it's saying yes or check yes or no on raising taxes, it will be no.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I guess this is a useful time while these are nonpartisan elections. You raise your hand and say you're a Democrat, right?
Yes.
So that just throwing that out there because so far we're talking in ways that might imply that you're a Republican, but there are still some of those, I guess, blue dog Democrats out there.
Moderates.
Yeah,
There's
moderates.
we're moderates out there, yes.
Yeah. And then free buses. That's something that we've at the Rio Grande Foundation really been frustrated to see. That's something the mayor's put forth. You drive by a bus station or bus stops, and you see trash and
Mhm.
often people just lounging around in a very
Mhm.
not like I'm waiting for the bus kind of way.
Yeah.
Talk about maybe more broadly, we've got the ART, we've got the buses themselves. Obviously, we spent a lot of money. That wasn't even this mayor. That was the previous mayor who
Mhm.
bequeathed us ART, supposedly a Republican. Talk about kind of that free bus issue, but more broadly speaking, because transit is a big part of city government. Your views on that?
So they have identified that the free transit um, has helped facilitate crime within the city. So a person could go into one area, either vandalize or burglarize an area, get on a bus and be in another area, and there's no footprint or trace on how to catch this person. And then also I mean, God bless these bus drivers. There's cleanliness, there's certain things that get on the bus that create really a hazmat situation, especially at these bus stops. And I mean, we're not just talking trash. Like, I've seen people urinate, defecate near a bus stop. And so these are public health issues. Um, and so a long way to to your very short question, there needs to be some type of accountability. So yes, I would impose a charge or a fee to ride the bus, and not an exponent. I'm talking, like, I remember going to college, it was like $1.50 to get across town. Like, let's start there. And and if you are in such dire straits that you can't, the $1.50 is hard or you can't afford that, and okay, let's get you a bus pass that allows you to do that. But also, we know who that person is, and there's some accountability on who's getting on and off that bus, and we can help kind of give these bus drivers a little bit of relief as far as, like, who's getting on the bus and who's getting off the bus, and really hold an expectation that these buses aren't just for um transgressions or other things, but this is to get people to and from work and home and wherever they need to be. And let's remember what public transportation was intended to do, and have it do that.
Yeah, I concur with that 100% for sure. Let's talk about something not specifically in the survey, but there was a Larry Barker story recently about the Route 66 Visitor Center. I don't want to throw anything at you that you're not expecting, but did you happen to see that story?
I yes, I did not watch all of it, but I did, and yes, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
So essentially, and I don't know the breakdown, but the city was definitely involved.
So
Uh,
is the county.
the county was also involved. Uh, this Route 66 Visitors Center, $13 million. A lot of the funding came through the capital outlay process. Like, there's plenty of blame to go around from the capital outlay to the city to the county. It's just, it's a real mess. How do you, and granted, mayor is a strong mayor in Albuquerque. We're not a weak mayor system, but how do you try to move things in a more productive way and talk about some of the issues as you see it with this thing? Essentially, they spent $13 million and it's not even open. It's never been open. Will it ever open? We don't know. But $13 million in. It's sitting out there somewhere off of Central to the very extreme west of town, and
Mhm.
never been used.
So they my understanding is they did a marketing study or feasibility study prior to trying to aggregate the funds to get this built. And I'm curious, because I in all transparency, I was with the county when they started talking about this Route 66. So this has been some time ago that the discussion started. And so if I recall correctly, and I don't know if this came up in the Larry Barker story, having not seen all of it, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but they did do a marketing feasibility study to determine whether it was good idea or not a good idea. And if I recall correctly, it didn't say it was a horrible idea, but it didn't say, "Oh yeah, it's gonna do all the things." I think what the intention is in some cases when you build community centers or places like an incubator or something like that, it draws or attracts people to that type of facility. So this just goes back to, okay, what was the desired end state of this facility? What was it supposed to do? And how did we lose our way to the point that we got it built, but now it's not serving that function? And why aren't we asking ourselves those questions? And why aren't we holding the people that voted to fund this accountable? Why aren't we asking them, what is it that made it not open? And I know Larry did a good job trying to get to the crux of that, but nobody ever really answers that question.
Yeah, i it's the kind of thing though that is incredibly frustrating
Mhm.
for I would like to think everybody, and I'm sure you would too. It's certainly frustrating for me because I think of all the things that we can and should do. I mean, obviously, law enforcement, and we've kind of seen this mayor. Uh, Obviously, the budget's grown tremendously, but the commitment and the ability to hire good quality law enforcement people and enforce the law is not there. So why don't we just dive into all that? Because that is one of the things that really people want to know about, and I
Mhm.
would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the homeless the and the crime issues. And I guess I'll ask first, starting this way: how related do you see those issues being? I mean, we hear from the advocates that the homeless are not the ones committing crimes. Of course, they do other things. They vandalize, they litter. They've started fires around town during the wintertime. Uh, and it definitely creates a sense of unease, especially in places where there's a lot of homeless and a lot of them are mentally unwell and some of them are yelling on the streets, et cetera. But um, how do you see that relationship? Let's start with that.
So I mean, it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways, and I can see where the advocates are coming from, but I can also see where the small business owners are coming from, the homeowners are coming from. Like these crime, vandalism, and all of the other burglary that the people categorize or characterize as petty crimes are still crimes. They still impact people and they impact lives, and so it has to be addressed. And they have over time, APD has withdrawn itself from addressing a lot of those issues, and they brought in ACS to kind of address that. But I think the challenge is where's the accountability? Like we talk about the homeless and we talk about the crime, but where's the accountability? So the at the end of the day, who's going to hold the homeless that do commit these crimes, that do trespass and burglarize and vandalize? Who holds them accountable? Well, it's not ACS. They're not trained to get them off the street and hey, by the way, stop committing crime. You have to use your police force, your public safety officers to be like, no, don't do this. Now, I'm not saying that they have to be an aggressive force, but there's got to be an intervention. And they are the people that we have that provide that intervention for us.
Now, obviously, intervention and this kind of thing. I'm not saying these are buzzwords, but these do not fully explain kind of how you ultimately deal with these people. Because either you allow them
Oh no, it's
to
got to stop.
okay,
So I see what you're saying, Paul. I apologize.
that's okay.
I want to be as direct as possible. No, it has to stop. They have to arrest. They, and I get that it's a revolving door at the jail right now in a lot of cases, but they have to arrest. There has to be some type of accountability for these crimes. And they have to know that something's going to happen. Now they don't. They know that if they do these things, they will not be arrested. So they continue to do it.
Yeah.
So how do you stop it? Well, we have to arrest them.
Now, how do you obviously we've been under a DOJ order for more time than Keller's been in office. That started again also during the RJ
Very,
Berry
yeah.
administration. It's obviously something that I think from a overarching perspective has had some real negative impacts and could be the ending of that could be great benefit to the next mayor. I think also a lot of us look at Mayor Keller and say, well, he's not really serious about crime anyway, so it's not going to change a whole lot. But it could allow resources to be redirected towards actually hiring police and doing things necessary to address crime. How do you see the conclusion of the DOJ's order? How much of a benefit is that to you or whoever's the next mayor?
Well, I think I think you're right. It is a benefit to the next mayor that we're not under that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to leadership and policy. And the police chief and the mayor determine what that is. And so, even under the DOJ, some of the policies, as far as not arresting for trespassing or not arresting for misdemeanors, like those types of things weren't a requirement of the DOJ order. So it's leadership. At the end of the day, it's choices, and we have to have a strong police chief and a strong mayor who are going to make those hard decisions on on lowering crime and preventing crime.
Yeah. Um, do you want to elaborate in terms of specifically like what is being done or not being done that you would do
So,
differently?
well, and here's the big thing, and here's what really truly frustrates me is nobody is saying or taking accountability. Um, the mayor or the chief of police, they will tell you crime is down. But you can ask anybody in any day, and they've been affected by crime in this city. And so the sense of what is really going on, I feel they are detached from and choose not to own the the situation that they're in. So that's the first thing. They have somehow shed themselves of responsibility, and somehow it is better. And it isn't. It isn't. Like own the situation first. Like be the leader you're supposed to be and own it. The second thing is that there's no accountability as far as what's going on within the ranks. So if the chief of police can get in a car accident and not have any accountability, or if there could be if or there's a DWI scandal that has been going on for some time and has been going on within the ranks, and leadership within the ranks knew about it or didn't know about it, where's the accountability? So these are like immediate things that need to change. The culture of this is the way it is not okay. Like there's got to be some ownership to the issues and to the challenges.
All right. One of the issues that I asked you about in the candidate survey is the immigrant friendly status of the city. Now, that's different from being a sanctuary city, but that is something that some people feel is a driver of our crime issues. I am not convinced myself of that, but I felt it was important to put that into the survey nonetheless. So talk about what does immigrant friendly status mean in the city of Albuquerque, and why do you think it's important to keep that in place?
Well, first of all, the state of New Mexico has I mean, we're a deep history of we're a state built on immigrants. And so, legal or illegal, we are a state of immigrants. And so we need to understand that culture and appreciate it. And so I believe that being immigrant friendly is just that, is that we're not going to hold it against you for being, illegal or legal in trying to make a living. We want to be a city, a safe city for safe people, regardless of status. And let's not also forget that it is the immigrant community that does a lot of the jobs that many of us don't want to do and have and do very well at it. And so we don't they bring an economy and they bring resources and value to our community, and we should not disregard that. And so I think the question was in the survey, would I repeal it?
Right.
Yeah, in which I will not. um and and so yeah, in that, and I firmly believe that, and I won't, I'll stand by that one.
All right. A couple other specific issues. You know, the minimum wage is an issue of importance. Project labor agreements
Mhm.
are a law that essentially kind of preordains labor unions as prime participants in construction projects. Kind of related issues, although obviously separate. Those are two hot button, but important to business issues, and you
Sure,
do take the pro business side on both of them,
I
saying
do.
no to the minimum wage increase and yes to repeal of PLAs. Talk about your broader philosophy on those two issues and their
Yeah,
importance.
right. So the minimum wage, you and I just want you to think of like the two-man small business, or the one or two female, just, or whatever, this very small business. And so when you put a requirement to hire an individual at a certain wage, um, that's one thing. But then to increase it beyond your means to afford it, then that could either mean you're working yourself because you're doing the job yourself. So, there's no vacation, there's no time off, you're doing it, or you hire. And but is it feasible to do that? And so what I don't want to do is a business that has two or three people. Now I am telling you, hey, you went from paying them $15 an hour to now you have to pay them $20 an hour, where now I'm impacting your income statement and your balance sheet, and you may not be able to afford that. And so now instead of having three people work for you, you're lucky if you can afford one or two. Now that impacts your operation of business. So either you're increasing prices, which now impacts your ability to move product. So I think what we miss is that there is a ripple effect on a business, and not just the business, but the life of the entrepreneur, of the business owner, that now has to either make hard choices. And I don't feel that government should be telling or getting into involved in the day-to-day of a business. Like, I get that we have to have a minimum wage, but we don't need to increase it. And if a business could afford it, and I'm from a family of small businesses, if we could afford to pay more, we would pay more, especially for a good employee. That you worked for it. We were not a greedy business owners. We knew how hard it is to find good people. Um and so we would pay them, and in some cases we would sacrifice our own to give it to them so that we kept the employee. And those are decisions that we should leave to the business. Government shouldn't mandate those on small businesses.
Yeah, well, hard to argue, at least from my perspective on that. I don't know what the voters will have to say, but we'll know that in November or after November. And I do want to follow up with a few things about the process before we conclude. But the last question was on the survey, and I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on the plastic bag ban or the lack thereof, and what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think that should go to the voters as far as I here's the thing. When I go to a store, I try not to use a plastic bag or try to remember to bring my own. But it doesn't always happen that way. And so, it's nice that it's there. But I think, that if the voters felt that that's something that the city should do, then I would comply with that request. But at this point, again, I don't want to get into the business of telling businesses, to provide it or not provide it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's fair. Now, talking about the process. So you're in the midst of signature
Mhm.
collection, and you wanted to, or are you willing to share the news? Where are you at in terms of the
Oh,
signatures?
yeah, absolutely. So, we had a slow start, primarily because I was deployed and out of the country. And as soon as I got back, we regrouped and got all the things together. So as of last count, which was I think I want to say a week and a half ago, we were at 79%. We needed 642 signatures to get on the ballot. As of this morning, we turned in 1,700. So even with a 50% validity rate, we should be on the ballot.
And one would hope that validity rate would be higher nowadays, because we have moved on from the
Yeah.
old days of having people stand in front of stores or go door to door and
Hmm.
collect signatures. Now you can do it all online, and it's pretty quick to verify
Yeah.
that. So that's one of the things that the city is doing better. But
And yes.
let's talk briefly before we conclude about public financing. It looks like the mayor is going to be the only candidate who gets public financing, and uh, we're not fans, just throwing it out there, of that system and the
Right.
idea of diverting taxpayer dollars to fund political campaigns.
Hmm.
You, from day one, unlike many of the other candidates, were saying you were going to public or privately finance.
Hmm.
Talk about your perspective on that.
Well, I agree with you. I don't believe that we should be using public money to fund campaigns. And the argument is that, oh, well, now you're subject to big donors. Now, don't sit there and tell me that this current mayor did not take money from big developers. I mean, and don't, and that would be a lie. And so you're, the argument is that you don't want to be influenced or um, influenced by, the money. And it for him to say he's doing public finance and not taking money from developers is a lie. And so let's just be honest from the beginning. We have to work for our donations. We have to raise the money, but at the same time, we have to personally invest in this and also know that it's not. I have never spent more money and worked harder for a job in my life. I will tell you that.
Right.
And the finance reports will show that. I'm not hiding anything. But yeah, we have to raise money. And the bigger the donor, sure, that's better. But it's not so much about who takes public and who takes private. It's about the individual. And the bottom line is that I'm going to put Albuquerque before politics, before the donors, before everything. Because this is my home and my objective is to make it better and so that we reach our full potential, and that's all that matters.
And just to be clear, the mayor, while he may talk a big game about public financing, he has measure finance committees and other
Oh
groups
yeah,
out there,
he still plays all the games.
right?
Yeah.
And theoretically, he is not supposed to have any influence with those groups. But back in 2017, it was widely understood and found that he did indeed have connections with that. But he'd gotten elected; they weren't going to kick him out, and it's kind of one of those unfortunate aspects of our campaign finance system that he abused it and came out ahead, and that's not a fair system. But yeah, that's one of many issues we have with city government and the way they do things. But before I let you go, I just want to give you a chance to highlight your website, share anything that you wanted to get out there that I haven't discussed with you, any issues that you care about, but definitely share how people can get in touch with you and anything else you want to briefly talk about.
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it. And you can find me at Armijo number 4 mayor.com. All the contact information is there, so please reach out. We're going to get into the actual campaigning now and all the things. So, my big thing is name ID. I don't have the name ID that the current mayor has, or and so if you have any ideas on how to help me with that, I am open. This is me asking for help, more so than a donation, because if I can get in front of people, then that's the best way to get the name ID. And I think what I'd like to say, just to in closing, is that I will work so hard for the city. And I have the experience. My resume definitely beats all of the other resumes and all of the other candidates when it comes to economic development and budgeting and understanding how local government works. Um, I I've got them by football fields as far as what I have done. And you'll look at my career, and I put points on the scoreboard. I'm not speaking out of both sides of my mouth. I have shown that I can get things done, and I will, because this city will be my priority for the next 4 years.
And really quickly on that, you mentioned you were deployed.
Hmm.
Who are you with? Briefly talk about that.
I'm a Navy reservist, have been for the last 15 years. And so it just it was a crazy story actually. We announced our campaign, and then 2 weeks later I was on a plane to Guam, because what had happened was I wasn't scheduled to deploy. The people that were going to deploy ended up falling out due to medical reasons. And so this is what happens for being healthy, so you get and so because I'm not in office. So when I'm in office, they can't deploy me because they code you. So I'm not the first reservist that has been in office. Another example would be Mayor Garcetti from Los Angeles. He was also a Navy reservist. But what happens is, so what happened to me was these guys fell out. My commanding officer called me and said, "Hey, I know this is short fuse. I know you have this life. You got a lot of things going on, but I really need you." And so it was one of those things. I was like, "Yeah, it's only a few months. I'll make the sacrifice. I'll do it." And so my family, did their best to keep traction as far as the campaign. And as soon as I got back in town, um, we went from 35% on the petitions to 50 to then 80%. So we just regrouped and did what we needed to do to get it going. And so yeah, so that's kind of what happened.
All right. Well, thank you for your
No, thanks for
time,
asking.
and thanks for stepping up and running to improve the city of Albuquerque. So, best of luck in your campaign. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show at Apple, Stitcher, or tell Google Home to play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.